Okay.
I have two large Scots pines that I want to talk about, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to prune the pine without using any sophisticated methods. Now this one, as I told you earlier, I did the other night, but I cursed myself for not stopping and showing it to the YouTube followers. But of course, I don't always have the time to stop and think about what I'm doing. And besides, I didn't have the staff around to film it. So I did this and completed it. So this is what I call my double literati. It's a very large literati, and I usually supply these to customers who plant them either in their balcony, with a large balcony, or on a rooftop, or in a large garden. And this pine has never been wired at all. I'm now going on to the sister tree, which is as big. I have these two as a pair, and all this growth has grown this year. You look at the candles, they're about 3 inches long. So what I will do is I will begin by pruning all the candles off. So we will just go around and literally take all the candles off. I may go a little further back and show you what happens when you do that. You may think that it's a bit crude, but the system works. If I can just ask my colleague to come nearer here, I will just show you. By doing it, you get bud back over here. If we home and you see, this is such old wood, but can you see that little shoot coming there? That is breaking back from very, very old wood. So by removing all the candles, you can get that. Not only that, you can even sometimes remove the shoot completely. Like look at this one here. If I look at this one, you see the bud is breaking there. I can, if I want to, I can cut that off, but I've still got green here. I can cut that. I can be as drastic as that, and I will get bud back all along the old wood. So with Scots pines, it is very easy to get bud back. But with the Japanese 5-needle pine, it's not so easy to do. So with Scots pine, you can cut back with impunity. But what you mustn't do is to remove all the shoots. Look at this one here. Now there's a shoot coming here. That's a new candle. I can cut that and get away with it because I've left a growth, and I can cut that and it will bud further back. But if you cut it here, that would die back to there because there's no green to pull the sap through. So you can see that all these little new shoots are coming from very old wood simply by doing that. So before I start styling the tree, I will just go around and remove all the candles. Carrying on now, I haven't removed all the candles, but what I'm going to do is show you how I approach the trimming of this tree. Now this tree, I've always used this as the front because this front gives me the best trunk line. You can see it's very beautiful, sinuous trunk line, and this has been grown naturally like this for many years. But this top part we did shape just by selective pruning, and I sometimes leave the trees for years at a time without pruning just to strengthen the tree. But the time has come for me to spruce it up and make it look better. So I'll just turn the tree around to show you that what I chose as the front is probably still the best option. This is a possibility, but I wouldn't like to use this as the front. Now this also, I don't think is that interesting unless I radically change the style, but I will stick with this as the front. So looking at here as the front, let's see what we can remove. I will remove this. I'm leaving little stubs in case I want little bits of gin, but probably not. I can always decide at a later stage what I do. Just bringing up too much, I remove. Now hiding the front is this branch, so I'm going to take this off because I want to open up the front. That's why I removed this branch. With that branch in the way, you couldn't really see the lovely trunk line, so that is removed for that reason. I always have to keep reminding myself that less is more. So the guiding principle is don't be afraid to prune. Now let me see what will happen with this part. You see there's so many cascading branches down here, this one and this one. So let's see what we do with that. I'm still looking to achieve a dome shape or a conical shape, so I might need to wire these down a little bit to get that effect, but that is what I'm aiming to do. So simply pruning may not do the job, so I might need to just put a few bits of wire on this tree. I've probably gathered by now I like my big bonsai. Many of you have asked what should the size of a bonsai be, but I keep a very open mind. If you go to China, you will see bonsai which are as tall as 15 feet, which is nearly 3.5 or 4 meters, and they're grown in large granite and marble pots. They're still bonsai. In Japan, they're slightly smaller, and if you live in a small balcony, then you may need to keep the small size. But most people who are into bonsai either prefer large bonsai or small ones, and I prefer the large ones. And I'm now going to do a little bit of wiring. Right, I now can envisage the dome of the tree to be about here. So this branch springing upward, I need to bring down. So I'm going to wire this branch. So I'm using 4mm wire. Again, if we come closer, just to show and reinforce the point I was making, you see how these buds are breaking back from really old wood. See, really old wood, it breaks back, so you don't have to worry about bud back on Scots pines. If you just cut all the needles or all the candles off, it will bud back. This tree has never been wired much in its lifetime, but I'm now doing it just to give a better definition. Again, you notice that I'm using one piece of wire to do two branches. So I've done this branch and this branch together. I can never emphasize enough that if you want to improve your wiring, if you just follow that principle, your wiring will improve no end. Something as simple as that. Keep telling yourself, two branch principle, two branch principle. Don't fall in the trap of trying to anchor the wire on the same branch. It is possible, but it makes hard work. So always find two branches which are fairly similar in thickness, and then that gauge of wire will deal with the two. So this one I'm trying to take down like so, and now these ones are different thickness, so I'm going to use different wire for these and different wire for these two. But I'll return and just see. You see, I've brought those two branches down. So very rudimentary wiring. This is not detailed fine wiring. I always use the gin pliers to terminate the ends, because with very thick wire it's quite spiteful on the fingers. So if you use the gin pliers, you get a nice termination. You can just loop the wire around the end of the branch. And this needs to be brought down as well. Now, although that's one branch on its own, I'm going to link it to an existing branch, so I still get an anchor. So I'm still following the two branch principle. See, this is sitting quite awkwardly. I want to bring it up slightly. Although I brought this bit down, I want to bring this up. So I'm going to link these two, this and this one, together. So this really is a video on learning some of the points of wiring. Now, because I'm putting a double, I'm going to follow the path of the same wire like that. So when you do a double, never cross like that. Never cross it like that. Don't do that. That is wrong. Okay. So when you do a double, always follow the path. So you're going this way, so it looks very neat, so that the two are almost in parallel together. So this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to link it to this to give the anchor. Take this out. As you can see, there's so much bud back that there's a huge cluster here. I don't need all of that. Now that I've got the two wires on, I'm now going to position it the way I want. This can come down like that. Always clean the ends off so that there are no little dead bits sticking up. Keep the trunk clean. I'm going to wire these two. So these two branches, again the two branch principle. Take this way. That gives an anchor, and this goes here. So already I've used about 4 different grades of wire. You cannot get away with just one grade of wire. A lot of people try to be mean and just buy as little wire as possible, but to be effective you should have the complete range of wires, because you need to match the thickness of wire with each particular situation. That means if the branch is thinner, you have to use a slightly thinner gauge, and so on. I always tip the ends of the candles. I don't want them to grow long because I want this entire tree to bud back. I've got this level and this level. Do I need this level? I think it would be nice if I had another level, but let me see if I need it. So before cutting it off, even I have to use the bag trick. Remember the bag trick I talked about? So if you don't want to cut the thing off, just cover it with a bag to see what would happen if it was to be cut. So you can do that and then see whether you need it or not. You don't really need it, but I think I will probably keep it because the gap is quite wide. If I flatten it, it would look quite nice. So I'll try and flatten it to see what effect I get. So I will proceed to wire that bit. The sun has come out again, and you notice that I'm wearing another of my new Hawaiian shirts. I don't know what I'll do in the winter, because come the winter it's very cold in this country. I won't have the chance to wear these nice shirts again. The more you look, you can see how the buds break back on the old wood. While the camera is here, I'll just show you what I did with this branch. Now this branch, for some reason, has kicked back on itself like that. But if I left it like that, it is shooting up too much. So what I've done is I've just taken it underneath and let it pop like this. So I've not done any wiring, so it sits nicely like that. So I've done no wiring, it's just sitting very nicely. Now this I need to try and get a flat pad, so I'm going to do that. So this classic herringbone shape, so I'm going to wire these in this position. I'm just going to show you, I've come across a wiring problem here because I want to move from this branch to this branch. So the wire ended there, so I could have crossed it there and then have come across that way, but that looks a bit untidy, so there could have been another way. So I can go underneath there, and then if I did that I would be again making a mistake by crossing there. So that is not the best way to do it. So let's see what is a better way of doing it. There's always an easier or better way, and I think the better way would have been gone this way into there, and then because I'm following the same path, that looks neat, so I can do that. So you can see how neatly I did that one. So you often come across that problem, so always remember not to cross the wires. Okay, so that is done, so this should hold, and then you can take it back like that, and that's how we make that pad. So they all spring upwards. That I've got to decide. I can wire that down. Now, so much for that. Now over here I've got this pad which is virtually complete. That is sticking up. I could easily wire it to the back, but does it do anything? No. So let's take it off, get rid of it. Even that I don't know whether to leave it or not. Probably don't need it, cut it off. And there are odd bits like this. Before I do anything else, I can probably show you again how we do bits of gin. Stop it there. So when the bark is still fresh, you just cut a live branch off, the bark comes off very easily. So that's how you do the gins, and then you can refine it by splitting it. There's so much sap coming up, and then you can proceed to tear it back. So you get a natural torn look. So it's not just cut off like a stub. And then you can refine it. I'm not going to spend hours doing this. It's just to show you the general principles. And that's how you do a very simple gin rather than cut it off. I'm not a great lover of gin and carving, but I'm just showing you as a principle. Now I've got that pad and I've got this pad. It's lying very nicely. This pad, and this pad. I've got now like 3 lovely pads. I'm going to wire all these, and again, I don't want to take up too much of this film time. I've got to ask myself, do I need this? I think I will keep that, and I might keep that. Let me quickly wire these and just see what happens. So I'm always looking for 2 branches to wire together. So I can wire these 2 together or these 2 together. So let's do this and this, and then this tree at all, but I find that I had to in order to really give it a good shape. The other big tree that I did over there, I didn't use a single piece of wire and it still looks very nice. What I've got so far, all these ones sticking up, I'll cut off. I've got a nice pad there. So looking at that, so I've only got this part left to do, and maybe some of the back ones. Now, I'm not going to take up a lot of video time, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with this crown by wiring like that and wiring like that to give a conical shape. Here we are. This is the finished tree with just a minimum bit of wiring. So I've done this just to show the beautiful trunk, and you can now see the lovely trunk line and all these contorted branches. There are many possible ways of looking at this tree. I did at some point consider making this the apex rather than this the apex, because this is very straight. But if I made this the apex, there wasn't enough branches on this side to complete the dome shape, and that's why I kept that. So this is like half the apex. So there are 2 bits there. If you analyze the tree a little more, you could also argue that there was a case for taking this branch off. You could take this branch off and it could still work. And for that matter, you could also take this branch off, because that's over there. So I could take that off. And you could still get a complete tree with this branch and this branch removed. But then I like to leave the options in case someone buys this tree, then they still have the option of retaining this. So we finished this one. I'm now going to show you the other one that I made. Now this is the twin to the other tree. I call this my double literati because the 2 trunks have been trained so that they have the repeat pattern. Both of the trunks are like this. And I'm very fond of this tree. And as you can see, this has been shaped purely by pruning. No wiring has been used at all. But before pruning it, I wish I'd shown the process, but I did it one late night when no one was around. There were lots of hanging branches here. Lots of hanging branches. So I pruned about, I would say, 2/3 of the tree off and left with this very minimal style. Literati, after all, is a very minimal or minimalistic style of bonsai, and I'm very fond of this because here you can just appreciate the beautiful lines of this tree. So I hope you've learned something from these 2 examples. Both of them are pines, Scots pines. I've shown you something about the candle pruning, but most of all, I've shown you how to prune and make them much better looking. So thank you very much.